Becoming Led Zeppelin. It is the first movie that actually was authorized by the band. It is playing now in IMAX and theaters all over the valley. I am so excited to have with me Bernard MacMahon and Allison McGourty. They're the filmmakers behind it. And I saw it on opening weekend, you two, and walked out saying, I have to talk to these two people that created this movie because it's brilliant.
Oh,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Karen.
My first question is why Zeppelin? Why, with all the groups, especially out of England, what made you choose Led Zeppelin?
Well, we had done a series of films called American Epic, like four
Yes.
films, and they were on the first blues, country, gospel, and even Hopi recordings from Arizona in the 20s. And we'd done those films with Robert Redford. Um, and and we wanted to do another music film that continued where American Epic finished, which was around World War II. And so we wanted a story that would take us from World War II to maybe 1970. And when I was a 12-year-old boy, my mum was an antique dealer. She used to have all these boxes of junk. Let me grab it there. And I found this little paperback book in the bottom of one of them, and it was called Led Zeppelin. And this was it. This is the copy I've got it here that my mother found on the shelf of my old bedroom. And I didn't know who they were. I'd never heard their music. And I read this story, and it's just the beginning of the group, their childhoods, their journey, their musical journey, and the first few years of the group. And I was really inspired by the story. It was like this sort of how you do things, and it was how, if you've got something you want to do, like being a filmmaker, whatever it might be, and maybe your parents, your school teachers are saying, no, no, you should just get a normal job. This was like their story was like, this is how you do these things. And so I read the book twice and I was kind of inspired by it. And my mum saw me reading the second time. And she told me that when I was 7 years old, I used to sit on this Uncle Peter's knee, and he was a very memorable guy. He used to come to our house and buy antiques from my mum, and he was always haggling the price. And then he'd be patting me on the head and asking how I was doing at school. And one day, my dad came home from school from teaching at Imperial College, and he came home early, and he saw this guy leaving our house, walking around the corner and getting into a car that he'd parked out of view, and it was a silver shadow Rolls Royce. So when when he next came over, my mum asked him what he did apart from collecting antiques, and he admitted it was Peter Grant, the manager of Led Zeppelin.
Oh,
So, so I
really?
used to sit on his knee as a 7-year-old boy. Then when I was 12, I read the book, and
Wow.
then a few months later, I started tracking down the records and fell in love with the music. So years later, when we finished American Epic, I came to Allison. I said, "This story's never been done before,"
Yeah.
and their journey is from post-war Britain all the way through to 1970. And I said, I think that first part is like a great story from childhood to sort of conquering Everest. And so
Oh, yeah. So then we just spent 7 months researching, looking to see if there was any archive to make a film. We wrote a script, we created a storyboard, and the few people that we told said, You're crazy because they're never going to say yes. They've said no to every filmmaker. But we thought this is interesting, and we love untold stories and we like a challenge. So we sat down and then we created this storyboard
Hmm.
in
Oh,
here.
is that cool? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
How awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
That's actually the storyboard.
that's the storyboard,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can see
Yeah.
there.
And it's the
Wow. I
whole
love that. That
And
is cool.
and so we
and so our journey kind of mirrored the band's actually. So we then managed to get a meeting with Jimmy Page in London, and we flew here from LA, and
into the very hotel we're talking to you from
right now,
right here.
yeah,
Okay.
and we sat down with him, and the meeting went so well, it lasted 7 hours. It was almost like an exam, but it was fun. He was happy. He was having a great time. And we went through the storyboard page by page through the whole story of of everybody's pre-band careers into the Led Zeppelin
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
And yes, 7 hours. And he threw in the odd test question. So, for example,
I said at one point, I said, this is the point where you see Robert Plant singing for the first time.
and Jimmy said, "What was the name of that band that Robert was in when I saw him?"
And I was like, Obstweedle.
Very good. Carry on.
I love it. Now, but Plant wasn't as simple. If I saw this right, you had to kind of follow Plant around. Is that right? Until you finally locked him down to talk to him?
Yes.
Yes, he's
Yes.
Robert's a kind of a wandering troubadour and quite mercurial. And so we met him in Perth, Scotland. We'd met him a couple of times before, long before we thought of doing this film.
Doing American
And
Epic.
and he was really aware of American Epic and was a fan of it. And so he knew our work, as was Jimmy. And so he we met him backstage and it was a big theater, but we were the only people invited backstage. And he was like, and we'd already seen Jimmy at that point. And he came backstage and he started saying the most wonderful things about American Epic and he said, so what are you going to do next?
And I said, well, that's what we want to talk to you about. And then he said, well, see me in Sheffield next Wednesday. And so we went to Sheffield. Fortunately, we had friends there we stayed with. And then the same thing went on, met in the green room afterwards. And we were still holding the storyboard. And he went, oh,
Meet me in LA. So we flew back,
to,
which is where we live, and met him there.
And that was a bit harder because there was 200 people in the green room after that show at the Orpheum.
Yeah. Well, you could really, you talked about, I want to jump ahead to the John Bonham audio because you really see in Robert's face, you really see in all three of their faces, the emotion. Did they know that you had that audio when the cameras are rolling or no?
No, we were showing them the whole way that the interviews were conducted.
Okay.
Was we were showing them a lot of sometimes very rare or unseen archive throughout the filmed interviews, and we're doing it in chronological order. So we're finding things from their childhood and showing them on the screen. And so along with John's voice. And so what was really wonderful is that when they agreed to do the film, they were very collaborative in that they allowed us to have full artistic control of the movie. And so, we were independent filmmakers and they respected that and they gave us a space to make the film as independent filmmakers. Furthermore, they actually opened up all their address books and gave us phone numbers of people they'd grown up with so we could contact and do background research. And they let us meet all these people, on our own.
So everyone from Rod Wyatt, who taught Jimmy his first chords, we went with Rod Wyatt to that school where that playground is, where we see him with the guitar. We've been there. We have been everywhere.
Yeah.
Almost everywhere we've seen the film, we have been there. Every school, every friend.
Yeah. So
all over the West Midlands.
I met with a lot of the producers that hired them when they were session musicians, like Shel Talmy. I talked at length with Glyn Johns, who engineered the second album.
You guys share nuggets in the movie that, like, I'm a huge Zeppelin fan, but I had no idea the Goldfinger connection with that. I mean, I don't want to give anything away to anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but there's so many little nuggets in this movie that you just go, wow. And the way you restored the video and the audio, it's like concert sound. It was, and I saw it in IMAX, but it was incredible.
IMAX, interesting you should bring that up, or bringing it back this Friday, 28th.
They're re-releasing the film due to public demand, which is amazing, all across North America on Friday. It's going back into IMAX again.
So I think there's quite a 3 in the Phoenix area.
It was the 3 in the Phoenix area, it was booked for a week, and now they're bringing it back for more. And
they all sold out.
They told us the last run. It was already IMAX's most successful music film of all time.
Yeah, I could keep telling our listeners at KSLX that you need to see this on IMAX. It'd be good in a theater, but the IMAX experience really brings it home. I'm a little older than you guys, and I really felt myself flashing back like I was a young teenager again. And Robert Plant's really foxy. I mean, that was headline.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, the whole
And
thing.
the clothes they're wearing then are so cute, gorgeous, aren't they?
Yeah, and the women, the
The
outfits of the
girls.
women in the audience, because you're all that it's really edited. We're big fans of like the golden era of Hollywood and silent movies. And so it's edited, it's put together like a musical with archive. So it's like Rocky Horror with these full songs, and it's got this sort of narrative emotional thread that runs through it. But the songs are all in there to advance the story. So when they're playing to these European audiences that don't get it and putting their fingers in their ears, they're singing Communication Breakdown,
And
when
then
they're on their way to try and get their first deal in America, it's playing Your Time Is Gonna Come. So all the music is designed like it was written to push the story forward. So the goal of it, the joy of it in a cinema, and it was always conceived as a cinema film, is to be on the biggest screen possible, and it can be it's great in a standard theater.
it's fantastic in a standard theater. It's not less good. The sound is amazing in a regular theater.
But the great thing about IMAX with Zeppelin, bigger is better.
Bigger.
So the biggest you can get to is definitely worth doing, and also go with friends. I mean, all the screens have generally been full everywhere I've gone. And
people clap after the song.
Yeah, and so it's definitely something to share. And the message of the film now is, with all the troubling things going on in the world, it's this sort of positive message of positivity, of creativity, and of these little young kids that literally they don't waste a single day. Every day they're learning about their music and learning everything they can. So when that moment comes and they meet in that basement for that rehearsal, they go, this is the one. And then they use everything they've got and learn to go, this is how we're going to do it. And so they didn't do TV, they didn't do press. What they did was stations like your station, which I think back in August 69 when it started was KDOT, wasn't it, your station?
Wow, you do your homework.
Yeah, and so this is exactly the station that Zeppelin would have been communicating to America on. They were not doing AM, because your station, KDOT, and your station now, they were playing whole sides of albums, back then.
Yes.
Stereo FM. And so they were going out to places like Arizona, little FM stations in the desert like yours. And so this station was what got the word out about Zeppelin. And it was the only people they talked to. They didn't do anything else.
I will tell you that our listeners really want to know this question. I don't know if you can answer it, but I'm going to wrap with this question. And that is, would you consider ever doing a Being Led Zeppelin, almost like a sequel, or is it kind of done?
Yeah, of course. It's a magnificent story. It's a magnificent story.
Oh, and you have so much video. You'd have so much more video, right?
Yes. I mean, we're doing the most difficult part. So we're taking you into the world that nobody knows, and most people have never seen any of this stuff. So it's exciting. And also, the beginnings of things, they're very instructional. But when I present this, it's fun because this is the point where there's still these kids and they're trying to get to this place, and they got all these things set against them, and they're just like powering through.
Everything's against them.
Yeah.
They can't get a gig.
In Britain, they can't get signed in Britain. So they're going out to...
Press hates them. They're on their own. And within a whole year, they're the biggest band in the world, despite all these odds. And I definitely did not know that before writing this film. And I think most people don't know that. So it's an incredible story.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, a King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table or a Lord of the Rings. I remember thinking the whole thing would be a trilogy.
I love hearing that. That's awesome. But this was such a magnificent piece of film. You guys did such a great job. I'm not worthy, but congratulations. I tell all the KSLX listeners in Phoenix and Zeppelin heads everywhere, fans everywhere to check it out, because it is so well done. I just want to say to you, Karen, it's a thrill being on one of the stations that would have launched Zeppelin back in 69. This is really, this is one of the funnest interviews we've done. Well, please, if your travels bring you through Phoenix, I would love to have you in the studio. So please keep in touch.
We would be delighted.
Congratulations.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.